My name is Kris Gethin, and what I aim to bring to you is inspiration, motivation from clients, everything that will allow you to evolve as a human being. Well, hello everyone, this is Kris Gethin here, and you are listening to the Knowledge and Mileage podcast. Here we are on Transformation Tuesday. Yet again, we are today interviewing one of my one-on-one online clients, Frey, who went through an unbelievable transformation, lost over 50 pounds in a very short time period, looked absolutely phenomenal to the extent that he stepped on stage, on a bodybuilding stage, and really kicked ass and took some names while he was there. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But Ricky, thank you very much for being on the show. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's happy you reached out.
So it's obviously been an absolute pleasure to train you during the last, over a year now, about a year and a half. And, what you've done during that time has been absolutely phenomenal. And, just like everybody else, you have a lot of work commitments, you have family, you have some setbacks. However, you've been persistent and consistent in what you've achieved, even though your goals have kind of changed a little bit along the way. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your backstory, and what was it that made you go, you know what, I think I want personal training to take me to that next level?
Yeah. I grew up being an athlete, like most any normal, boy from like the age of 8, 9 years old. I want to play baseball. I want to play basketball. I want to play soccer. I played soccer at a really, really high level into like the Olympic development program. Left school early, kind of lost my way, ran with the wrong crowd. Ended up going back to school kind of late and playing more soccer at the university level, which, I hadn't played probably 7, 8 years. I was the oldest one on the team, coming in at like 23, 24, kind of fat. Quickly got back in shape, all of the cardiovascular work you do playing that sport. But once I left school, just kind of lost my way a little bit in terms of fitness. Woke up one day and I just kind of looked at myself and I was like, man, I do not like the way that I look. I don't like the way that I feel. I had picked up a couple of injuries. I had a couple of knee surgeries. It's like, this isn't me, right? Like I had had a kid, got a divorce, ended up in a great relationship. But to me, I wasn't holding up like my end of the bargain of someone's investing in me. I need to set a good example for my kid. I don't want to be one of these people that's, 35 and they're out of breath going upstairs. You take 8 steps and get to the top. You're like, whoa, and that was Mount Everest. So, I followed you since probably your editor days at bodybuilding.com with like the first hardcore trainer.
Yeah, that's like 12 years ago.
Yeah. And I remember when it first dropped and, some of the platforms there and just, kind of being a fan. And I was like, you know what? It's just time to bite the bullet, invest in myself, invest back in my health, and therefore, my kids' future health by setting those examples, really being able to learn the things that I need to learn to get back to kind of where I was as an athlete and in shape and not only looking good, but more importantly, as I get older, feeling good, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm just going to give people a visual perspective here because I'm sure people are thinking, oh, okay, well, ex-soccer player, he can't be that far out of shape. So I'm going to hold it up to the camera right here. We'll also put this up in the editing process so people can have a close look there. So that's Ricky, about 50 odd pounds heavier there compared to his after picture. There's the side picture there, the profile. And here we have the back picture. It's funny, people always say, yeah, you can stick your gut out. You can't fake the back picture, can you?
You can't fake love handles like that.
No, it's impossible. And then let's go straight to another back shot. Okay, so this is now getting ready to compete. Completely different person. It's like, look how diced those hamstrings are. The hamstring to quad tie-in is insane. And then lower back, traps, delts, lats, bicep peaks, absolutely everything. And then here we are from the front. Like, you look like a completely different person in the face, let alone everywhere else from the neck down.
Yeah,
absolutely phenomenal.
That's morning of the show. And I was actually looking at these pictures maybe 2-3 weeks ago, right before you reached out. And I'm going to be having knee surgery next month. So I put on a little bit of weight. And, post show, people are like, oh, you can't look like that year round, right? You're absolutely right. You can't look like that year round. So, you fill out and glycogen stores build back up and you get a little bit thicker. But I was looking back on those. I was like, man, I can't wait to have this surgery next month for my knee, get this over with, get back to looking much closer to that than I am now. And sometimes I look at that before with especially the back shot, right? Like the love handle's there, and then the back shot, like the morning or like a couple days after the show, after I've eaten a couple of meals, hitting in the gym and just looking at it going, man, I can't believe I looked like that, and I can't believe I looked like that.
yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, it's a crazy transformation, especially like you said, or I said, neck down, of course, completely different person. If you're taking away the head, you wouldn't recognize that's the same person. However, looking at the face, I don't know if you'd put 2 and 2 together and say that's the same person, because you look completely different. But with the post-show weight that you put on, I think it's good to do that. Because you get that post-show anabolism where your body just sucks up everything like a sponge. And I found through my experience of competing and dieting down for video trainers or shoots that I was able to put on as much muscle in the post 6 to 8 weeks than I could in the entire year by taking advantage of that anabolic window. And if you stay very, very lean all year round, it's very difficult to put on muscle. It really, really is. And, you're more susceptible to injury. Everything's a little bit, not as much synovial fluid. Everything's a little bit drier. So, a little bit of insulation there is a good thing, but obviously not too much. So obviously when you signed up with me, did you decide from the get-go that you wanted to do a competition and that was the goal that you wanted to home in on?
It's always kind of been in the back of my mind. I ruptured my ACL when I was younger. I didn't get it repaired. It wasn't until maybe, I think it was right after I was out of university, said, hey, I want to step on stage. So this is probably 8 years ago. I want to step on stage. I'm going to follow actually a couple of, I think it might have been the Hardcore Trainer at the time, the first one. Yeah. And then maybe the Muscle Building Trainer right after that. It's right about the time that released. I'm going to follow these. I want to prep. Maybe I'll find a coach. I was 25, 26. I had no idea what I was doing. But outside of just following these, like here's the instructions. This is step-by-step, food, cardio, supplementation. This is what I need to do to be able to look good on stage. Maybe not compete at a high level, but just to look good stepping on stage. As I got drier and drier, I was probably 8 weeks away from the show, started feeling a lot of pain in my knee. And that's really where things kind of spiraled out of control, right? I had my ACL done. It's like 9 months of recovery, put on a bunch of bad weight because, your first 3 months, you're essentially in a big leg brace, right? Like cardio is out of the question. And being young, well, I'm just going to eat and I'll be fine. I won't get that fat. No, you can see the before picture. Like this is now years of just kind of putting that on the back burner. I think maybe after 2 months of working with you, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to go here, and we'll see where the next couple of months take me, and maybe I can do it in 6 months. Maybe I can do it in 8 months. And I want to say it was probably month 7 of working together that we went from those before shots to those are my morning of show shots, right? Yeah. So it was always kind of there. But it wasn't like my first thing of, I want to do this just so I can compete. It's more like, hey, I want to do this just so I'm not a fat ass anymore. And, if we can get to the point of, hey, yeah, well, I'm making a lot of progress and I still look good. Kind of peeling away those first few layers, like what's left, right? Like, do I still have lines or am I going to be, just lean and look okay? Or can I actually step on stage? Once I started to see a little bit of that progress, it was, let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah, because you really don't know during that stage how much muscle that you're putting on, because you're still covering up, with a little bit of the body fat. And a lot of people don't understand that you can actually put on muscle and lose body fat at the same time. And you've proven that. You just have to be meticulous with the certain types of food that you're getting in at the right times, and making sure that you're recovering, you're resting, because that does dictate your performance and your testosterone levels and how you're able to retain muscle, which obviously you did. Obviously you lost a lot of body fat, obviously you put on a lot of muscle. Were there any other noticeable changes that you were able to acknowledge as you're going through this transformation?
A lot more focus. It was much easier day in and day out to stay kind of on task, whether it was work or something around the house, in the gym, etc. Just, I don't know if that's endorphins or not, but it's kind of that you start building the habit of success, and then you can be focused more on success more of the time. Is just the way that I felt going through this. Especially the first few weeks of like show prep. Maybe not so much the last few weeks, where I remember we were talking about this, where it was just like, hey, you got to write down, like put some Post-it notes on the fridge, and these are your meal times. This is what you're supposed to be taking, because you're going to get real foggy brained at that point, right? But I think that was the biggest thing, is really the physical feeling of success kind of manifested the inner feeling of success, and therefore like just being able to have much more focus on the task at hand, whatever it was. And that's stayed. That's the greatest thing.
Yeah, it has a transcendence effect, I've noticed. So if you're now focusing more on your workouts, the macros that you're eating, maybe weighing your food prep, having your supplements, because that is taking concentration, you're able to focus a little bit more, as opposed to what we do in general life. We have our phone with us all the time, which creates distraction. We go onto Instagram, then we friggin' lose ourselves. We're like, whoa, what rabbit hole did I just go down? So we train ourselves to be distracted. That's why I like to read a lot, because that causes concentration, which again will have a transcendence effect. And not only that, all of a sudden you're feeding your brain with the right fuel. Instead of product, you're now having food. You're having antioxidants to beat off free radical damage. You're having foods that are less inflammatory, so they have less of a chemical response in your brain. So now you're feeding not only your body, but your brain with the right fuel. You're going to feel a little bit better from that, from the endorphin rush, from the workouts, from the exercise, getting better blood flow to your brain now from movement as well. It all has a transcendence effect, and it kind of works in a synergy. And a lot of people, they start up a program thinking, hey, I just want to have a six pack. However, they start getting all these little noticeable side effects as well that they weren't even like signing up for, which is a great thing, because then hopefully it doesn't turn into a 12-week transformation or a 6-month transformation. It turns into a lifestyle now. Now, you mentioned you've had a couple of knee surgeries. Now, did you find that held you back at all when you were going through the transformation? Obviously, there's a lot of people out there that would use that as a justification or as an excuse why they shouldn't work out, why they shouldn't do leg workouts, why they shouldn't do cardio, why they shouldn't get off the bloody couch. How did you overcome that?
I actually made it a point of emphasis. Like, this isn't good. This is something that I have. This is part of me. I'm going to take this and use it as something that I have to overcome from day one, right? Like, I'm going back in, like I said, next month I'm going back in to do some cleanup work on the same knee. So it's about taking that weakness and either using it as fuel or using it as a strength. Like, I know that there's some movements that I'm not really going to be physically comfortable doing, but I'm going to do the things in the gym to make those comfortable, whether that's some like BFR work, right? So I can go really, really light, but then go to failure. Or maybe taking something like, we use like the classic example. Oh, I have bad knees, I can't squat. Okay, well, maybe you can't do a high bar back squat. Can you do a front squat? That takes a lot of, that sheer force at the bottom out of your knee because everything's loaded somewhere else. Yeah, I can do front squats. Great. We're going to do front squats. We're going to hit a squat. We're going to find a way to do this around this injury rather than let it be something that defines me. And, kind of like you said with the after shots there, like, I think one of the biggest things that helped me on stage was having the separation between that outer part of my hamstring and the outer part of the sweep of my quad, which was a lot of that like narrow stance work that a lot of people, they're like, well, I can't do that because I have bad knees. Because it's a much deeper movement. You're not as wide, it's not a shallow movement. There's a lot, if I remember right, we did a lot of like sissy squatting in my program, just essentially feet together. And it's a really long range of motion. Great. I might not be able to go as heavy. Maybe I have to do some BFR stuff. Maybe I got to train in that 30, 40, 50 repetition range rather than 6 or, 4 or something super, super heavy. But I'm going to find a way to do them. And I'm not going to let my knee be something that prevents me from doing something that I want to do. Right.
Yeah. And it certainly didn't hold you back because, your legs were phenomenal. And, that's the thing. I think a lot of people think that you have to train within that 6 to 12 rep range. And if you can't, then how are you going to build muscle? At the end of the day, the muscle only knows failure. It only knows the signal of trauma, which will allow it to grow. Those satellite signals tell you this is traumatic. We have to come back next week stronger, bigger, denser in order to take this load. And sometimes that comes from myofibrillar hypertrophy. Sometimes it's sarcoplasmic with higher reps, higher intensity, like you said, principles such as the BFR band. And it's definitely the mind-muscle connection and the mental attitude. You just got to have a positive mental attitude, what you believe you can achieve. And you've been able to do that. Now, with your work and your commitments as being a father, how were you able to navigate everything else other than your training and your cardio? What about your meals, your supplementation, your meal prep, carrying your meals with you, making sure that you're having 6 meals a day?
Prioritization, right? That's the thing. And I think one of the things you always say is either if you fail to prepare to fail, right? Like if that's the choice that you're going to make a better choice. Be prepared. If that means Sunday that I have to cook for 3-4 hours to, especially during show prep, to make sure that Monday through Friday, if something comes up for my work, I manage a team of 12 people. So at any point of the day, somebody can call me, hey, this is broken. Hey, this customer's on fire. Hey, this is coming up. And I have to get on a call. I need the ability to be flexible to a point, but stay on program. Right. Especially as we did show prep, right? Like you get into those last 6-8 weeks, 1-2 meals in a single week, that can derail a lot of progress, right? Like it resets you 2-3 days. And I remember having this conversation with some of my friends, like, hey, why can't you just go out once? Because it stops my progress for 2 days, 3 days. And if that's 5% of what I would be on stage, I'm giving my competition a 5% advantage. I'm not doing that. I'm coming for blood. I want to win, right? So, being able to balance work that way by having like my food prepared, being able to incorporate my kid into some of the stuff. Hey, buddy, let's go for a walk, even though it's pouring down rain. I live near Seattle, Washington. So, it rains here 9-10 months out of the year. And hey, put on your rain jacket. We're going to go for a 20-minute walk. Whatever lunchtime is, especially, going through the COVID stuff in my state where schools are shut down, kids are, at home trying to learn. He's out in the living room. I'm constantly having, check on him and work. And then, oh, hey, it's been 2.5 hours. I got to get another meal into the microwave. It goes, here we go. Hey, let's go for a walk after I eat for 5-10 minutes, help digestion, just really incorporate him into a lot of those little things. And then, you have a relationship on top of that, and God bless my now wife. In this case, she was there for the whole thing, and you've done shows second in a lot of or second in natural bodybuilding, right? For worlds, it's an investment, and not only me, right? It's your support system around you, and being able to carve out that time. Hey, she still wants to have a nice dinner somewhere, or she wants to go out somewhere. Great, I'm going to eat before. I know they're going to have salads. I know I can tell them, hey, dressing on the side, just don't even give it to me. No croutons, no cheese. I'm going to eat this. Bring me some lemon, bring me some lime, and maybe a little bit of vinegar. That's all I need. On the salad, she can have a really nice meal. We're still going to have a great time. Bring some of the, the travel packs for hydrocharge or something in a glass. If she wants to have a glass of wine or a cocktail or something. And you find these ways to make these things work. And it's not hard. You just have to put a little bit of thought into it, right? Be prepared. Like, just think ahead, and you can do everything that you've ever done. Granted, sometimes you might have to take a nap during the day because, there's a bunch of chaos and, you're running out of energy, you're getting real low, but, you just find a way to make it work.
Yeah, that's right. And I think a lot of people think that it's way too hard. Of course, not everybody has to weigh every single meal for the rest of their lives. They don't have to train for hours a day in the gym. I get that question all the time. How many hours a day do you train? I'm like 45 minutes, 4 to 5 times a week. It's not a big commitment. It's just quality preparation, as you mentioned, and just thinking through things beforehand, as opposed to getting surprised at that particular time. Like, you're stuck in traffic, you don't have any food. Well, you should have food with you, or at least a protein shake and maybe some oats. You've got to be prepared. Speaking of which, did you have any cravings whilst going through the transformation? And did you have to resort to things like isolate or casein just to help quench your cravings at all? Some people use hydrocharge. Everyone's different.
I like to eat. I can eat a lot of food in high volume. Like, when we were working on putting on a little bit of mass, maybe like 24 weeks out from the show. Yeah. We quickly got up to like 4,000 calories, right? Of clean food. And a lot of people are like, well, I could eat 4,000 calories. Yeah, you could eat a pizza. It's not that hard to do, right? But if you want to eat 4,000 calories of chicken, turkey, salmon, rice, sweet potato, it's a lot of volume, right? So I didn't really get cravings per se. I didn't feel satiated at sometimes though, right? Where I'm like, man, I'm just still hungry. I could eat more of this.
Because your metabolism's going through the roof at that stage.
Exactly. And I kind of took a two-pronged approach. If I felt like actually hungry and I'd had more than 80 or 90 ounces of water so far that day, I would have like an extra isolate, or I'd add like a half a scoop of casein in the evening to like my casein pudding ice cream, I would call it, right? Confusing, like convincing my brain this is ice cream. A little bit of water, mix it up so it's a little bit thicker, pop it in the freezer for 15 minutes. I'd add, maybe half a scoop extra. Not really close to show, but, in the first parts, like, just feel a little bit more full. Hydrocharge was huge, right? Especially as you're trying to get up, in the 120, 150 ounces of water a day. Trying to do that with plain water, you're probably not going to be super successful. Eventually, you just kind of get, bored. Like, I want something that tastes good. One thing that really helped was making like hydrocharge ice cubes. Were fantastic. Take those, you can add them into like a little bit of sparkling water, and it just kind of dissolves as it comes along, right? It gets super, super cold. And just like I said before, much like about the preparation and thinking things through, get creative. There's ways to use the same thing. They say there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? Like, you can use casein, you can use isolate, you can use hydrocharge in a plethora of ways. Go do that. And you're using the same ingredient, you're staying on schedule, but you're getting variety throughout your day. And I think that's one thing that helped me kind of feel fuller, because, you eat the same measured amount of oats and egg whites or sweet potato and chicken, and eventually 2 months into it, you're like, man, I'm just hungry. I ate it all, but I just want more. Like, there's food that I want, and how do I stop this feeling, right? I'm gonna add a bunch of water. Maybe I'm gonna add some more greens because, they're calorically negative essentially. and maybe I'm gonna add a little bit more protein. Always protein, never for me. If I sniff, like a white rice or something, my body just, I'm going to add it right in. So it was always, hey, I want to do more repair when I rest. I'm going to add a little bit of protein here or there, just to make sure that I'm ready to go for the next day. And it makes me feel fuller.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And, speaking of which, with the hydrocharge, I just love to have, like, in the evening. So it's never during the day. In the evening, I'm the same. I'm pretty hungry. So I'll always have, like, hydrocharge with carbonated water. I'll have sparkling water. And I'm like, that seems to satisfy me so I can at least go to bed and go to sleep. And what really helped you, I think, as well, from getting a lot of cravings, is that you were one of those people, not only having meal frequency helps with blood sugar stability, but also, cold showers, ice baths help with blood sugar stability. But you were actually going for a little bit of movement after a meal as well. That can help with blood sugar stability. So all those things prevent the crashes of blood sugar, which, can turn into a cravings to a lot of people. And I noticed with a lot of clients as well, if they are craving a lot of savory things, so something that's salty, chances are they're lacking in sleep. It's lacking in sleep. Maybe too big of a gap between meals, something sweet, lacking in sleep, probably something savory. So, as long as you can combat both of those areas with your meal frequency and your sleep, then you're pretty much good to go. Now, obviously, you've done my video trainers. So I want to ask this. What is the difference then for you in particular? Everyone's got a different opinion, I'm sure, for having one-on-one training with me online as opposed to watching a video trainer of me online and following that program?
There's really two things that stand out. Flexibility, to be able to make some of the modifications that are needed. And that kind of rolls into the second thing, which is personalization, right? There are things, we can talk about my knee, right? That I have to find, a different way to do what I'm trying to do to get the result that I want, right? I always think back to, like, the 4 weeks to shred. Your first day in the gym, you tear your lat. You don't tell anybody. Now I got to work around this. I'm gonna have to wear shirts. I can't let the production crew know. Like, that story, anytime I get to tell people about you, is always one of the first ones that I tell. We're like, I don't think you understand, like, how dedicated you have to be to this, and not necessarily in that, like, well, I'm just going to bulldoze my way through, right? But, like, doing it in an intelligent way. That personalization and the flexibility of working with you directly and being able to give you the feedback, rely on your experience and expertise to say, you were just giving the sweet and savory example of sleep versus meal frequency, right? Like, that's not something that you or you read about unless you have the experience to back it up, right? That personalization really helped me and is the thing that's kind of kept me coming back, right? We see all the time people have a lot of success with just the online trainers, but if you want to, like, really dial in and not only quickly, but have a long-lasting transformation, like you said, going to a lifestyle, that's the thing that the personalization has done for me. Being able to learn just a lot of those little things specific to me to be able to keep moving forward.
Right. And just having that accountability, because, like, for sure, the video trainers do provide knowledge. They do provide accountability through the community, but not obviously accountability to me personally, I guess. Well, you can if you're watching the videos every single day. And we've seen tremendous transformations from people that have just followed those programs exclusively. So there is a time and place, and, it's free. Not everybody can afford one-on-one training, right? So, it's free. That's another advantage. But a lot of people, I guess, such as yourself, if you're going through trial and error, you've got personal issues, let's say if it's time, or let's say if it's an injury, you've had knee surgeries, and you need to have a little bit more customization from that angle, then I guess, that's where it works out very, very powerful to allow you to continue to progress and work towards your goals, such as, competing on a bodybuilding stage. All right. And so what would you say has been the biggest takeaway for you? What has been the biggest advantage of, us kind of working together that you've been able to apply to your life? It may not just be training, it could be nutrition, but it could be the lifestyle, it could be inspiring others. What would you say is that takeaway for you?
For me personally, it's kind of rediscovering myself and regaining that like no fear attitude.
Being harder to kill.
Yeah, being harder to kill, right? And being able to make decisions much more quickly. I went through probably a 5 to 7 year period of just being a neutered man, essentially. Like not being able to just make the tough decisions now. Always putting it off, always kind of being, lazy. I tell some of my friends that, they come to me for advice and stuff like that. I'm like, hey man, you just have to do it, but it's going to be hard. So what?
Oh shit.
It's going to be hard now. It's going to be hard tomorrow. It's going to be hard in a week. It's going to be hard in a year. Do you want to waste that year, or do you want to do it now?
And it's going to be harder the longer you leave it.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases, like the longer you let whatever issue it is fester, it's just going to become a bigger problem. Right. And I think that's one of the things that, my wife has said now is that you're not afraid of anything, which helps me because, for a lot of women, that's much more attractive. Like you're not afraid of anything. You're going to go do whatever you need to do to make sure that everything is okay, whether that's money, whether that's job, whether that's fitness, whether that's raising the kid, taking care of problems for him, whether it's, school or, around the neighborhood or whatever, like you're just there. Right. And that's how I was. And then, like I said, kind of lost my way, and I've kind of rekindled that. And what's funny about it is I look back and I'm like, man, I am never doing that again. Like that, I have that clarity of I'm never going to be that person again. Fuck that. Like every time I think about that, or I feel like I'm becoming complacent, right? Like, no, I got to get up, I got to move, I got to do something. Maybe even as something as simple as like, I'm going to go for a 20-minute walk. Even though it's a little bit painful right now with, the knee stuff I got going on, but I got to get up, I got to move, because if I don't, if I start to slip back into that person, no way. Absolutely not.
Yeah. And speaking of which, I was going to say, when you lost, like 50, 55 pounds, that must have been a godsend on your knees.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't really, I didn't realize it at the time. So like, for clarity, last August, I started having a little bit of knee pain. And so I went back in and I have tricompartmental osteoarthritis in my knee, which essentially means that like the age of 55, I'm getting a new knee. I have to find the ways to get to 55 because they don't do knee replacements, at my age, to be able to get there. So I have to be really careful with, a lot of my training and, and this is where that personalization comes in, right? Like just have to do the very specific things that I need to do with what I got going on to be able to get to where I want to go. So being able to drop that weight, I went from almost 225. I'm only 5'7". I was not a sexy 225, right? Like, so being able to go from there down to like my show weight and then kind of normalize in that, 175, 180 range felt great. Like just being able, I play a lot of softball, you can kind of see in the background there, the softball bags up top. Our team won our state championship this year. To be able to run, I'm 34 and a half now. I run with the kids that are, 20, 21, and they're like, oh, old guy's trying to stretch this into a double. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be standing up on second and your throw's going to be halfway there because I'm not as fat as I was, man. Like I have speed again. Yeah, it's great. Like that weight with what, for people that don't know about, osteoarthritis, like it's degenerative, it hurts like a bitch. Like, there's just a lot of pressure sometimes. And you gotta stay in a certain place physically, otherwise it just gets worse and worse. So never again. That's kind of the motto, right? Like never again.
Yeah, and definitely mentally as well, because just listening to you talk now, you seem so positive, even though you're dealing with the knee issues and you're like, it hurts like a bitch. You just seem so positive, and you're creating the outcome through the visualization, turning these things into reality. It's got to be okay. You just got to work through it. You've got to be smart, sophisticated about it. But there's a lot that you can gain from bodybuilding. I actually did a series about this at bodybuilding.com when I was the editor-in-chief, how bodybuilding builds ... So that can build financial freedom, because you're so much disciplined now with numbers. You're counting calories. Now you're counting your bills, how much that you're bringing in. You're more disciplined. You're going to be a better father, for instance, because you're having more confidence. You feel better in your abilities. You're a better role model. You're able to play around with your kids. And gives you more energy, more confidence, more freedom as well, because a lot of people are trapped inside the bodies that they've been given. They understand, okay, this is a vessel, but they create this connection like it's my body. Well, no, you've got to get rid of the mind, me, I. You can control it. The brain is the controller, and that is it. You can't use your genetics as a back pedal. It's your mind that you have to overcome and battle with. But once you do, and once you create this lifestyle, now you're eating better. Now you're having better blood flow. Now you're releasing endorphins. You're going to turn that around. So when I did this silent retreat recently, the instruction was really, really good. Our very, very bad habits, or our extremely bad memories, it's like it's carved in stone, and it's going to take years and years and years and years to get rid of those lines that have been carved. However, after a while, when you observe that and understand that and start changing your habits, now it starts turning into a line in the sand, and maybe the ocean will come in and wash it away at the end of the day. But then when you start working a little bit more towards your goals, now you're biohacking, you're meditating, you're visualizing, you're following everything with consistency, even on the weekends. Now it is just a line in the water, and it just goes away. And you're replacing those bad habits with good habits, and you're creating a better lifestyle just by changing 1, 2, sometimes 3 things in your life to have that transcendence effect.
For sure.
Right. Well, thank you ever so much for joining me on here. It's really been a pleasure, and obviously a pleasure having you on, and a pleasure training you as well. And I can't wait to see what happens as we go into the next phase. And, after you've had your knee surgery and everything, and, getting back on track. But is there anything that, before we sign off, is there anything that you wanted to add or speak to the viewers about anything, Ricky?
I've always said this, especially in like a lot of the like Instagram live stuff, where like if you have a chance to work with you, and this isn't like a hey, you should say this at the end of the interview type of plug, like, and I know people have like messaged me on Instagram after I say this, like if you have the opportunity to get that personalized level coaching, jump at it. Like if you're on the fence, if you have things that you feel like limit you, it's simply a gap in knowledge on how to work around that. And if you don't know where to go to fill that gap, and you're trying to read, you're trying to find all of these things to go and be successful, take the help from someone that's done it, someone that has the expertise, someone that is successful. I always think about things like investing, whether it's money or it's like real estate, or in this case health. Go to the people that set the trends. Like, see what they do, work with them, find a way to get in with them, and take advantage of that. Like, it's the way that you get compounding returns quickly, right? You don't go from 225 to 100, and I think my stage weight was like 161 when I stepped on stage. Like you don't do that in 8 months without a lot of help, without great help. So do it. Just do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Where can people find you or follow you, Ricky, if you wanted to give your Instagram or whatever a shout out?
Yeah, sure. On Instagram, at Rickdolf, RICKDOLF. That's the best place to follow. So yeah.
Yeah, so if you do have any questions for Ricky, you can bombard his Instagram, his DM account. But again, I really appreciate having you on here, having somebody such as yourself that has an inspiring story, that has, issues that you've dealt with, but you've overcome. It just shows that you can overcome these plateaus. And usually they're glass ceilings. They're short ceilings that we decide to live by, but it's our deciding factor at the end of the day, how tall we want to stand up and, walk for the rest of our lives. Our lives are extremely short. And you do realize that the older you get, when you get long in the tooth like me, you do understand that and you appreciate that a lot. So, do whatever you can. I encourage all the listeners out there to do exactly what Ricky has done and just live your life to the absolute fullest, because the last thing that you want is get to the end of your years or when you're too old with regret. If you have the ability to do so, which 99.9% of you do, take advantage of it. So my name is Kris Gethin, and with our guest Ricky, and this is the Knowledge and Mileage Podcast, and we are out.
Thank you ever so much for listening. My name is Kris Gethin, and I am out.